Thank you very much. Before I answer that question, I also want to respond to some of the issues she raised.
Okay.
The issue of inadequacy of service providers. To be fair to the government has put in place mechanisms for responding to GBV. We have 36 states in Nigeria, including the FCT, and I think there is just 2 or so states that do not have the sexual assault referral centers. And in these sexual assault referral centers, it's a one-stop shop that has all the component. The medical component is there, which is the health component, the justice system component, the psychosocial support component, including the security intervention component. There is another component even added, rehabilitation and this livelihood support for survivors and their families. So when sometimes we begin to say that it's inadequate, we should look at the existing framework and structures. What we need to be talking about is how to strengthen them. You understand? Yeah. Strengthening them and strengthening the capacity of both the personnel and also the equipment that
are
they
the
need
people
to
aware
use.
of these, centers? That is just
people
and functionality of the centers.
The victims,
survivors and their families. I cannot say that they are fully aware, but it is an advocacy, enlightenment issue that is already ongoing.
Okay.
My organization, for instance, have done GBV assessment for service providers and the development of referral pathways in the entire northern Nigeria. And what we found out within that space is that it's not the issue of the absence of those centers. Besides the sexual assault referral centers, we have what we call service providers. And these service providers are multifaceted. One, we have those from the health sector. The primary health care centers in the villages sometimes serve as what? Service providers, especially first responders to sexual and gender-based violence. We equally have the courts, whereby you go for access to justice. They also are service providers within the legal and justice system. The security agencies are there to also, even though sometimes victims and their families also suffer from the hands of the security sector, especially the Nigerian police. And equally, we also have some non-state actors, especially NGOs, community-based organizations, health, faith-based organizations that offer both psychosocial support to the victims, rehabilitation to the victims, and equally the entire livelihood support framework for the victims and their families. We equally have a lot of actors playing out within this space. And I can tell you that there are organizations within the localities, especially community-based, that are not funded by anybody. They render pro bono services to these victims and their family, and they offer also enlightenment on the dangers, like what we're talking about of GBV. They also informed, especially they work with the sexual assault referral centers that we call SACs, to also enlighten the community of the essence and the location of this. So the referral pathway, what it does is that in each of the states that we work, we developed for, in fact, there are more than 1,000 service providers just within the north. And their capacity might not be so huge for them to render such services. But there are also some indices that will make them to know that, okay, for this particular service provider, they have what we call, they are highly recommended, because the facilities, coming to your questions, are they adequately equipped? Yes. The SAC centers, I can say to an extent, 60-70% of the equipment are there. Okay. The personnel are a bit, you understand, they have the basic requirement. Because even within the provision for assessment, there's what we call those, what we call indicators that has to put those organizations under scrutiny. We have developed a kind of questionnaire online. Based on the responses from these service providers, we're able to trace them or put them or track them into highly recommended service providers, and those that make referral. For those in the community, because they do not have the capacity to respond to GBV issues, they are serving as what? Referral organization. One cases in the community, because some of them are the only organizations you have in the community. So even though they don't have the capacity to respond, they can have the capacity to refer. So they serve as referral organizations. So basically, they also offer, in whether directly or indirectly, we have them on ground to offer such services. Then coming to my questions,